Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the Yo Video Games podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 450 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Due to the week is Marcus E. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Marcus.
I realized I think we're almost to like 460. This might be 460 that we're doing right now. If you were starting back at one, I'm so sorry. We've learned so much about audio and stuff now, but if you were starting all the way back at 1, what do you think would be the biggest change in like how we do the? I think we've gotten more positive.
Yeah,
I think that's
I think we're on 459, by the way, but yeah,
459. Yeah, okay, so we're close.
Somewhat. I think it's interesting in a way because I feel like we have more reason to be cynical than ever, but I think we're also, because we're older, we're just like, it's just not worth, because there's a funny thing. We're not 20-year-olds talking about stuff, like being angry because, a piece of cloth was removed or added to a character anymore. Like the dumb stuff just doesn't really hit us. So now I feel like it's not only like, hey, we know when something's really just not even worth being angry about, but we also, I think we appreciate the good stuff more. Like when something like an Astrobot hits, it's not just like, I just love this, I just love being happy. It's like, man, this is just such a joy just to play something like we. And I think, honestly, one of the only things you really can do in a game industry that we're in right now is, frankly, just promote the positive.
Just focus on the good stuff. Yeah,
when something positive is happening or going down, the best thing you can really do at this point is just, okay, well, let's exalt, let's put up, let's raise up the things going good, or the good things, good decisions, good people, whatever, rather than just, okay, well, this industry's yes, the industry's miserable. It is cooked.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of entertainment right now is especially, but like I feel like gaming is at like a real crossroads. Well, okay, all of entertainment industry is at a real crossroads. But
well,
gaming is one of those things where it's like developers have never had so much stability, and yet they are still constantly living in a world where they can be cut.
You know what? I think we're either about to, or we're going to, right about to turn a corner on this, and I think you're going to see that in examples of a couple of different companies who basically didn't chase trends and just stayed the course. And I think what's going to happen is it's already happening. It already really is happening. Like Capcom's one of them, right? Where they basically they had their dark days and they got out of it, and they just kind of went back to just doing what they do, and they stayed their course, and they're doing really well right now.
Yeah.
Basically, statistically speaking. Why? Because they stayed the course. They just, okay, we're just going to make a new Monster Hunter, we're making new Street Fighters, a new Dragon's Dogma, new Resident Evil remakes. We're just making games that Capcom makes. They just kind of like stuck to their guns, and they have side projects that don't really do anything, like Exoprimal and Kunimitsu.
Yeah.
Kunimitsu, Path of the Goddess. But like, okay, whatever. Like it Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection.
But I do like that they still take chances on new ideas. And if Kunimitsu took off, if it became a huge hit, like that's another franchise that they can then rely on. And I do think that there needs to be more room for risk taking, and I think that's a problem in creatively, especially like creative risk taking. Just because you're starting a new franchise or a new IP, which I'm all for. I love the idea of more new IP, but if you're doing something that's a new IP, but it's the same old thing that 80 other people have already done, you think it's a safe new IP, what's the point? Just stick with the thing you know.
Yeah.
You know, but that being said, like Exoprimal, I've pretty notoriously said like, nah, not for me. Like I'm not
Well,
gonna.
I think most people did, but I don't. It was put on Game
Some
Pass day
people
one.
love that
Like,
shit.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that. Oh, this game is pile of dog water or whatever. But I didn't really play it, so I don't really have a. I don't have
Opinion.
any. I don't have an opinion on Exoprimal in particular, but I also don't think. I also don't think it's not a game that was going to sink the company if it didn't succeed, kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, there is a little bit of, hey, they're just kind of doing what they're good at. There is a little bit of, like you said, there's not a ton of big let's make something new, let's be creative. And then again, when I always say, hey, if you want to see creative stuff, you need to pay attention to indies, because I think the biggest hypocrisy, the thing that I can throw back on us, the paying customer, is that we don't pay attention enough to the indie space. When we sit here and crave new ideas, new IPs, new everything, and that's exactly what indies are doing.
Right.
And then we don't buy it, or we just kind of brush it off because it doesn't look as $100 million as the other games by first party studios. Well, you're kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy there, of like, oh, the game industry is doomed because there's no creativity. Well, there's creativity here, it just doesn't, there's not. Yeah, but that doesn't have a budget. I'm like,
In people's defense, like once you've seen one pixel art game and then you see 100 pixel art game, it's hard to get interested.
right, and that's where things. So see, things are getting interesting. They got interesting really this year, and maybe you could say like more recently, maybe a year or two back. We
Right.
started getting into the PS1 era. It was kind of funny where it's like indie devs forever were obsessed with the 8-bit era. In fact, the 8-bit retro revolution, or the retro throwback era of indie games, lasted longer than the 8-bit generation did.
Right.
But now we've moved into PS1 era. So we've got actually like there's a number of indie games that came out this year that are PS1 games and are actually very, very good. Crow Country is one of them. Fantastic, survival horror throwback.
Crow Country is why do I recognize that? I feel like I've seen that.
Probably have that one actually got some. I think that one broke a little bit of barriers where it's like people are aware of what Crow Country is. That one definitely got some talk about it.
Right, okay.
There was a one I recently played through called Mouthwashing. Now the name is weird, but it makes total sense when you play the game. It's Event Horizon, the first Alien, and Sunshine, all put together, and it's like a 3-hour game. But it plays out. The script is really tight on it, like really, really good. Even though there's no voice acting because it's budgeting, but first person, PlayStation 1 graphics, basically psychological horror in deep space from people who are basically space truckers. And
I like all of those things.
it's again, it's like a 3-hour experience. Like it's told non-sequentially, so it'll hop back forward and backwards through time. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't play out it doesn't play out strictly linearly. So something will happen, and then like it'll like character will like it'll fade out, and it'll say like 2 hours before this or 2 months before that. So you go way back in time or whatever, and then like you learn slowly. You piece it together as it happens. So yeah, it's like watching. It's like because it's only 3 hours or whatever. So it's like watching a movie. Like Memento or something that's
Yeah, I
just
was
not.
gonna say it's like Memento.
So, but with a very Event Horizon, Sunshine, Alien kind of
I'm okay with that.
aesthetic,
Yeah.
and it's PlayStation 1 graphics, but at a good frame rate, and really well done. And then there's another game I learned about today, and it came out in July, and it's on everything, including every console, called Conscript, and it's a survival horror game, But from what I can tell, there's no actual supernatural elements. You're just a French soldier in the trenches in World War One, and it's basically just someone who's been in there for 2 years, and you're just seeing the worst of humanity come forth. And like whatever line you're holding breaks, and then just German soldiers are going in and clubbing people to death and shit, or mustard gassing and shit. And it's PlayStation 1 graphics.
Okay. Okay, I like all these. To bring it in towards our topic, though, what engine are they using to get PlayStation 1 graphics?
That's a good question, because some of these, I think, mouthwashing and maybe even Crow Country, I could double check. I believe most of these are Unity, because again, Unity has a freeware version for a lot of devs. So that one, that one actually, yeah, Unity for Crow Country. That's what I thought. I'm pretty sure mouthwashing was Unity, I believe, as well. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly, but I might be. And then I don't know what Conscript was.
Huh. Get some PlayStation 1 graphics.
Yeah, it is Unity. Yeah, mouthwashing was also Unity. Which is funny because there was that point where it almost looked like was it Unity almost shot itself completely in the foot. With
were they the ones that tried to do the different licensing?
yeah, and they had to backpedal on it because it blew up real bad, real fast. Conscript is made on Game Maker Studio 2.
Huh.
Procedure generated top down. Yeah, well, that's what. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, Game Maker Studio. Absolutely free to download. Keep forever for non-commercial use. For commercial use or console export, purchase a professional license or enterprise subscription. Yeah, so yeah, I know Godot was kind of like the one they were kind of thinking of running to after Unity almost crapped itself. But anyways, yeah, so Unity has been used for a couple of these big indies, and I've seen Unity pop up in a number of games as well. So Unity somehow, I think they dodged their bullet that they almost pointed and at themselves.
Well, I mean, that was one of the most interesting cases of a company just not reading the friggin' room at all. But they build in PS1 graphics. Is that because Unity itself is limited to that kind of graphics styles?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, I was gonna say, because they just they're doing that to be less resource hoggy.
Yeah, I think so. I think because it's probably better for what what they're doing, for just the way files are data streamed. And that's the really interesting thing, and that's kind of the thing I wanted to kind of like basically lean into with this topic is the sort of, we kind of thought going into this generation that it was just Unreal 5 was just kind of going to be it. And it was like, hey, if you're not doing Unreal 5, what are you doing? And it felt like for the most part there was a lot of people going to Unreal 5. Like it was just kind of like everything was just sort of shifting in that direction, which blew my mind a couple days ago, where Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic, was saying how like, oh yeah, we had a bad year. We lost $1 billion last year, but this year we're only losing a little bit. We're actually in good. And I'm like, how Epic, how are you losing money? How does that happen? How do you have Fortnite? How do you have all your licensing fees? How do you have residual fees that I know exist there? How the merchandising and stuff? I'm like, how are you losing money? You have to be the most poorly managed studio on planet Earth. If somehow this success makes you lose money.
They're saying they're losing money, or their revenues dropped by $1 billion for a year.
No, lost money. They said they
lost $1 billion.
Yeah, they said they lost 10. Was it they said they lost $10 billion. They spent $1 billion more than they made back like a year ago, and then this year is going to be just a little. We're just losing just a little bit of money this year.
Jesus, I see what you do for others. Just I would love to be in a position to lose $1 billion.
Yeah, Epic Games is now financially sound. Now financially sound, some Tim Sweeney. Was shared during Unreal Fest in Seattle 2024. Um, which I was just kind of like, what? What?
I don't. The thing is when you have an industry. I went on this rant before we started recording, and I'm not going to go on it again. All I'm going to say is private equity has just ruined so many industries, and this is no different. Just some investors will carry this loss and foot bills, and it's just yeah, ugh, ugh.
So okay, so I guess maybe the real question is why did a lot of people just sort of just like just do Unreal, just do Unreal? Why was there so much push for Unreal? And I think a lot of that came from the idea that if you have a standardized engine, that's good for the game industry in general because that means everyone can learn the same engine, which means that they have, you know, a real leg up when they have to go to apply to a new studio.
Right.
Everyone's using the same thing, so if you learn something, you actually have a way to get into to break into the industry, to move around in the industry, and that's just ultimately a good thing, right? Sort of, you would think, or at least that's the general idea. And I know companies talk about this, you know, where they hire people and they're like, yeah, the hard part is getting it. If a company does an internal engine and they hire someone and th're like, the problem with hires is only people only know how to make games on Unreal or maybe Unreal and Unity. They don't, they obviously have no idea how to operate our own thing.
Well, that and like it, with game development not having very much job security, like even if you are on a game that does really well, you're still pretty likely to get laid off.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you have multiple different engines, each of them their own unique little snowflake, and you get rid of institutional talent basically on a whim to cut costs? Where the
And
hell?
I think maybe that's the counter argument is that like, hey, we make a hit game, we do it on our own engine. We basically have a reason to tell Sony, you know, say you're a Sony studio. I don't know why I just went there immediately, but like, hey, don't shut us down because you shut us down. We can't hire anyone who knows anything about our engine. We have to. That's going to be more money and time to train people if we ever do hire people again. So it's almost like a sort of not like blackmail, but sort of like a threat. Like don't get rid of us. You get rid of us, you're going to lose all this institutional knowledge. And then the big company says, I don't care. They get rid of you anyways.
Yeah, if I thought it would work, I'd be like, hell yeah, you should definitely do that. I My big argument for like why I think companies should just use Unreal, Unreal 5 works, is good. It's reliable. Just do it. Stop trying to build your own special, you know, tool
Right,
that.
because in the reason why not? Why shouldn't you build them? Like because building an engine costs as much as a large scale game. Like think of like a huge scale. We're talking 100 to 200 million dollars budget for making a big giant massive AAA game. That's what it costs to make your own engine.
And if you make a piece of crap engine, you then just add work, time, money to every project that gets built on it.
Square Enix learned that one the real hard way. Like last gen and even a little before last gen, even going into the PS3 gen, all the way back there, I was really sort of like, you need to stop making your own engines, like Crystal Tools, which and then into Luminous Engine. I was like, Square, you don't know what you're doing. And the thing is I almost feel like Square. I'm like, I think it's more of just a weird talent thing because this is going to be sounding really weird. Because if you're our age or older and you're listening to our podcast, you probably are under the assumption that Square makes the most beautiful games ever. They're cutting edge. They're pushing the technology. They were,
Yeah, for a long time yeah.
they were, and then they hit HD development harder than Andrew hit puberty. So so
Excuse
they had a lot of trouble. They had a lot of trouble moving up, moving into the HD era, and everything they tried to do just became almost disastrous for them. So
What
of
are you
course
trying to
they
say about me in puberty?
saying you hit it early and fast and hard,
What?
like a brick wall.
Like my tits came in at 13 and just what? I don't. It's just how dare you? Okay. I had beautiful long hair well into my 20s.
so, so So this is the thing, which I was saying, the start with PS3 going into PS4. A lot of these companies are like, oh, we're going to make our own engine. And then that kind of became a disaster. And then it was just like, just use Unreal. And Square did do that. They actually did that for Kingdom Hearts. They did that for Final Fantasy VII. And here's the weird thing. Like I said, we're rounding the corner now. Now that became a bad thing. Because Square went with Unreal 4, which was not good for data streaming. It makes making an open world really rough on Unreal 4, and Rebirth is the unfortunate side effect of that.
Well, they made that mistake at exactly the, or they made a good decision at the worst time, and then they chose a good engine, but they chose to make the worst kind of game for that engine.
Yeah, on the follow-up game, I guess it was great for a remake because
Yeah,
it's a corridor game, so works beautifully. And then you get to the open world part now. Now we have to be outdoors and walking across wide open plains. Oh, engines like ugh.
it makes you wonder if they knew that they were going to do that.
Here's the crazy thing I keep thinking back to, which is Fortnite for a very long time ran on Unreal 4. Fortnite has a large map, a very large map. Uh,
But Fortnite's not pretty.
it's not pretty and it's stylized and whatever. I just figured since it was going to be a PS5 exclusive, and Epic's been kind of in bed with Square for a while. I thought there was going to probably be a lot of knowledge share. No, and maybe they did. Maybe Rebirth exists the way it does because of the knowledge shared from Square, or sorry, from Epic to Square, to make Rebirth is run as well as it even does.
I vaguely remember reading an entire article about how like that's part of the cost of the licensing is like Epic provides a lot of support
Right.
for
So
getting started.
and maybe that is there. And so but yeah, we ended up because I don't want to dunk on Rebirth because I think Rebirth is still a very good game. It's a very good looking game too. But yeah, it definitely suffers in ways other games on the same system don't suffer.
Right.
And now apparently, yes, of course, if you buy the $800 upgrade system, and then it has the magical um, pisser option, PlayStation super sampling, whatever the
So
PSSR, like the abbreviated is pisser. With your magical pisser showering over your graphics, it gives it a nice new sheen. But anyways, so then it looks good and can run good. But it's
you-
again, I go back to like Horizon 2, and I'm like, yeesh, man, it's kind of unfortunate what happened to the engine here. And again, I'm just kind of saying straight up, and to back myself up here. Square is not they're not the cutting edge graphical powerhouse anymore. Yes, they got computer rendering. They had a CG studio really early on. They were all big into that. They made characters look good on PS2. They made them look good on PS1. But PS3 hit, and again, Crystal Tools, Luminous Engine has this problem. Honestly, I was reading today about, okay, Metaphor just came out and it's got this huge Metacritic, 94, 92, something like that. It's going to be in contention for Game of the Year, right? And I played the demo. The demo's 8 hours long, and my immediate first thought playing that demo was like, shouldn't this look a little bit better? Like, I'm not a graphics whore necessarily. I play games on Switch, for God's sake, but I was like, doesn't this look kind of rough? And everyone agreed. Even the fan base were like, yeah. Graphically, it is a PS3 game. It is a PS3, and apparently it runs like dookie on everything. The PC version, the Xbox version, the PlayStation 5 version, they all don't run well. And this is a game that does not push beyond a PS3 on a technical graphics level.
Just
And
like
then
terribly optimized.
terribly optimized. Just like frame rate is bleh, frame rate goes to poop very easily. There's a lot of really just There's no anti-aliasing in the game, period. Um, it's just they
Yeah.
do they do weird things where like the draw distance, and you'll be in a town, and like anything beyond a certain threshold is just a cutout, a gray shadow silhouette of whatever it is, and sometimes it just doesn't load in. So you just, okay, that's just how it is, I guess. It's a it's a PS3 game. I granted they've been working on it for some time, but it's kind of amazing how poorly this game runs, how low tech like on a technical level it looks. It is PS2 level level design. They're not sprawling. There's no sprawling, if feels kind of is, I guess, but I don't. It looks like a PS3 game. It just looks like it looks like someone remastered a PS3 game, and this kind of reminds me too of Elden Ring, also a highly rated game, 90 whatever the hell on Metacritic, and it does not run well on anything. It is unoptimized as hell. Not one bit of optimization went into Shadows of the Ermigerd tree uh, at all. Like it runs as poorly as the original base game did. No actual progress was made on that. So there's this kind of weird thing where there's a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot. There's some Japanese developers like Square, like FromSoft, like Atlas. Their games are still struggling on the PS3 era. They're still struggling PS3 games.
Is it an institutional knowledge thing? Like, is it like we were saying, like they just don't like to update? They just don't like to update engines?
Oh,
Or
that's very true for FromSoft. I imagine it's extremely true for Atlas, because
I
they're a very slow moving company when it
right,
comes to
and
that
I know
stuff.
for a fact that Japanese companies prefer to have their own in-house engine
Hmm.
just generally.
And
So
Square's the
that
oddball, where it's like they had their in-house engine, it burned them, they dumped it, they switched to Unreal, and Unreal was fine, was good for a time, but now it's kind of biting them because it's either spend year plus moving everything to Unreal 5, or just make it work in Unreal 4, which is they went with that one. Um,
which
so
I do understand. Like I don't want to paint them as I don't know, wrong for that. Like I probably would have chose make Unreal 4 work.
yeah, and it's not because like, oh well, it's not for any like weird cultural reason. It's just the fact that when the PS3 came out, Japan shifted entirely to portable and mobile. So PSP was huge in Japan. DS was huge. That
Right.
was the console war. The console war went PS2 and GameCube, and then it went PSP and DS. That was the next console war for Japan. So a lot of Japanese companies just didn't really bother, or if they did, it was just a struggle, to make stuff work. So I mean, people are coming out of it pretty good. Like Arc System has made Unreal its bitch, very beautifully, and on a very low tech scale. Like they don't require a ton of plugins or whatever to make it work. They just require like dicking around with the camera and lighting system a lot. So Arc System made Unreal its bitch. Capcom made their RE engine and it's worked. I mean, it is showing its limitations a bit with Dragon's Dogma 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds a little bit,
But it is
but
still one of the better engines out there, period.
and it's
Like
doing what it needs to do for them, and it's making them good money. So it's working. Like you can't, I wouldn't
it,
say, I
it
would not
does
say it's
that.
a bad engine by any means.
It also it's I don't know if I'm going to describe this right, but from what I was reading on engines, comparatively speaking, the RE engine is really good at managing its own resources. Like
Hmm.
the way it like manages textures,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like that kind of what's that example we used once when we or you used rather when you were explaining to me about like RE2 remake about how like the lighting and like the way the textures of books on the
yeah,
background work, like the way they load that stuff in is extremely efficient and so the game can run really well. I mean,
yeah.
it is they're probably the strongest argument against everyone using Unreal
Hmm.
Engine if they would allow anybody to use their engine, which they won't. But
Which is kind of the weird, funny thing about it, where Here's where it gets interesting to me is like when you have someone like Sony and you have all these other studios, and Microsoft's guilty of this too, who have their own internal engine, and it's not necessarily being shared amongst, and some of it might just be the studios don't want to use it. But I from what I understand though, like id Tech was a great engine. id Tech 6 or 7, whatever they're up to now, it's probably still a great engine. But very few, but id does not like other people using id Tech. They want to be very selective and controlling over who uses id Tech. And it's like, why? Like, I feel like Microsoft should have stepped in there and been like, no, you should have like we should all be using this. This is great. What's wrong with you? But
Well, from like a Japanese perspective, I know like corporate Japan very much values proprietary technology, proprietary, like that's like that is a cultural
yeah.
thing from my understanding. Granted, if you're Japanese and listening and I'm totally wrong, definitely tell me. But that is just like something because I know they're again culturally kind of like that generally, even with like art. Like certain animators or like our artists for manga will have their own way to do it that is specific to them.
Yeah,
I
there's, and I know this was something that like was talked on. Max has brought it up a long time ago, where it's like not created here, not invented here. Like hey, we don't do that. We didn't make it. We're not using it. Kind of thing. That happened a lot with like rollback netcode, where they didn't want to use rollback
right.
netcode because well, we didn't make it, and we don't really trust where it came from, and da 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 da. And it's like,
I, in some ways that is kind of a romantic view, and I do sort of find it charming. Like I know it is not practical, and it is not I,
it's just kind of dumb. Like honestly, like,
I-
as the game industry gets harder and harder to make stuff, as stuff gets requires more time and power and manpower, and no, like trying to go everything on your own doesn't work.
but that's like the friggin' American way, man. Going your own way. Like I do actually admire that. I realize like you do make a valid point. And I'm not even trying to argue that your point is incorrect. I'm just arguing that there is a certain romance to going your own way, and I do sort of admire it.
Okay, you can like Fleetwood Mac all you want.
Hey, look, Rumors is the best album that's ever been dropped, all right? And everyone knows it. And at least one hot girl, you just like you bring up Rumors and you'll have something to talk to them
Good lord.
forever.
Yeah, keep that in mind, Chad, I guess. Um,
Look,
but anyways,
you don't have to talk to about that like cute alt girl. Bring up Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. Just talk about how they were breaking up during that.
wow.
It's beautiful. It works.
Does Andrew speak from experience? I don't know.
It works. Okay. I'm just
So
saying.
breaking it down, let's break it down with Sony first of all. I know I briefly talked about id Tech, but anyways, so I saw this post by Red Kong 19. House, you probably don't listen to this podcast, but whatever. And I thought it was he brought up a really interesting point, which was he was asking, do you think more PlayStation studios will switch to Unreal 5? And he said, and he listed out, okay, here's PlayStation studios using their own engine. It's 10 in total from what he counts. Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Insomniac, Decima Engine, which is Guerrilla Games and Death Stranding, so Horizon Death Stranding. Team Asobi uses their own engine. Polyphony uses, I believe it's called the Iris engine for Gran Turismo. Blue Point uses their own engine. Sucker Punch, the Ghost games use their own engine, internal Sucker Punch engine. The Bubble Bath engine by Media Molecule. Well, I don't know if anyone uses Dreams anymore, but I don't even know how long that company's going to last. And then San Diego studio, who makes MLB The Show, uses their own engine. All 10 of those studios use their own engine. And then you have 5 other studios that use Unreal 5. Bend, Days Gone people. Bend Studio, Fire Sprite, Fire Walk, which I don't know how long some of those will last. Haven and Housemark. So you're talking some VR studios. You're talking unfortunately, the Concord developers. Housemarque who did Returnal. Um, so yeah, they either started, or started or just mostly use Unreal 5. And then he went on and described other studios, big studios that used to have their own engine and have dumped it. And Red Engine from CD Projekt Red, and that's crazy to learn after Cyberpunk. They're dumping their own engine. They go into Unreal 5. Slip Space Engine, which that was the Halo engine for 343. Now Halo Studios, they're going Unreal 5.
Yeah.
I know Digital Foundry speculated the reason for that was to make Halo easier to port to PlayStation, and yeah, that sounds right. that just sounds accurate.
It could be.
The Dawn engine, which was Eidos Montreal, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Foundation engine, which did the Tomb Raider reboots from Crystal Dynamics, all getting dumped. All dumped for Unreal 5.
Oh, but the Tomb Raider games ran pretty well. Like, well, I didn't play the very last one, but that engine was pretty good. The Last of Us 2 engine, whatever their proprietary engine is at Naughty Dog, like that engine's great.
I mean, yeah, Uncharted 4 still looks great. And then, of course, there's Luminous engine as well, which is dumped for basically Unreal 5 for all intents and purposes, or Unreal anything at Square. So, yeah.
As a weird aside, because it's sort of what prompted my interest in the conversation, I was mentioning that switching to the name Halo Studios, yes, 343 was a reference to what is it, Guilty Spark? It's Guilty Spark.
Guilty Spark,
yeah. It's like, okay, but like changing it to Halo, I don't know, it just feels like
now there's no question about who you are and what you do.
This is what you do. You make butt plugs. You will always make butt plugs. I hope you enjoy making butt plugs. Like, maybe, yeah, you used to be, sex toy industries, and you knew you were going to be making dildos and other things, but now, no, you are butt plug industries. You make only butt plug. Like, make the most beautiful butt plug. I don't know why it just it seems a little bit depressing to just change it. I also there was something again charming about having the name be an inside reference. If you don't know anything about Halo, you don't know what 343 is, right?
Right.
Which isn't it it's like a holy number. It's 7 times 7 times 7. It's one of those like angel numbers or special numbers, whatever.
Is it 49 times 7? Is that what it is?
I'm guessing. Yeah, 49 times 7. Yeah. That sounds right. But like any of you woo-woos out there, don't take this as hate. I appreciate all the woo-woos. I got plenty of woo-woos myself. But yeah, if you're into angel numbers, is that what the 7 times 7 times 7 thing, or what caused the 343? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, point is, it's a little bit depressing that they're switching their name to Halo Industries or Halo
Studios. I don't know. To me, I'm just like, well, it just is what it is now.
It's not the end of the world, It's sort of like how I keep describing our current world as a beige dystopia. Yeah, it's not like terrible, but it is sort of dystopian, and we just don't get the neon or the flying cars or the crushing disappointment.
It's a boring dystopia.
Yeah, it's the insurance broker dystopia. It's fucking beige walls and I don't know, DMV lines. Like we don't even get the android war or running into aliens and shit. No, it's just like every day is exactly the same. Nothing ever happens even while things are happening.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Can it even get any worse for Halo fans? I mean, they've not been generally Halo fans have not been happy for well over a decade. You could argue Master Chief Collection eventually got good. You can argue that I had a lot of fun with certain multiplayer things in Halo 5. I've heard that. Um, but like generally speaking, Halo fans, it's pain to be a Halo fan. So,
This is a weird discussion because m- I I think that the last time they took a real chance was with ODST, and ODST didn't even really like do anything special necessarily. It was just like it was novel to be just a regular dude. Yes, you're part of the special forces team. It was novel to be a regular dude and have to fight the Covenant, and they were much harder to fight than as Master Chief type thing. You know, granted, been good games after ODST, but it was like it was the last time something made me like pop an eyebrow, like, oh, you know. And I think that was one of the first ones where they had like actual character actors doing the voices. You know what I mean?
hmm.
Um,
What about Reach? How was Reach? I mean, I know a lot of people say
well,
Reach was,
Reach it was good. It was good.
yeah, that's
Like
like
Reach,
the fall of Reach is the fall of Halo, basically.
well, because after that, it was like they don't know how to wrap it up. Like the Covenant War ends. Like the I hate to go like, well, the books, but the books, like they had these accompanying, like straight up good, well written sci-fi books that went with it, and like the Covenant War came to an end, and like espionage started to be a thing where they were like wrapping up or like taking vengeance. And it's like that's cool. Give me an espionage Spartan that's like Sam Fishering his way through a delicate peace with the Covenant and murdering the shit out of people to steal technology and like get vengeance or
Yeah.
whatever. Like give me stuff like that. Think out of the box. But they won't. They stick with Master Chief. I'm not even hating on Master Chief. I like Master Chief. It's fine. He's stoic. He's 7 foot tall. He kicks the shit out of things. What's not to like? But we've been with him for like a long time. Like you could branch out. You could give me some new ideas. You could show me what an Oni Spartan or like in the books there's this thing where like a failed Spartan from the Spartan 2s like Master Chief like ends up going into Oni, which is their intelligence
Mm.
and like running their Black Ops program because even though she is like a fail, she couldn't do the full Spartan. She is still a Spartan. She still has that lifetime of training. She just doesn't have the augmentations and stuff. And so she's a spy and she does like a lot of dirty espionage. That's cool. Give me that kind of crap.
Right.
Um, you know,
Andrew wants Oni to come back. Andrew really just wants Bungie to make Oni 2, but it's about
yeah, go ahead. That's all I'm saying is like they have stuck to like the same path for so long now that it's you know like throw some new ideas. Halo is literally an entire universe. It is massive. I don't know. Give me a Halo game where you play as an elite the entire time. I guess you know. Yeah, you had the Arbiter and you
hmm.
know however long ago that was, but like give me shit like that. You have so much to work with, and you're doing nothing. You're just giving the
Hmm.
same game over and over again.
Well, I think that kind of all falls back to because I think there's too much money. I think there's way too much money tied in with Halo. There's where
Too much of a risk to yeah, no, that's
I
fair.
mean, it's like when you know again going back to like a whole Star Wars thing, we want to have Master Chief on the box. We want to have Master Chief in the pop up ads. We want to have Master Chief. Want to show his face. We want to be able to go dun 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 dun. Dun. Like you just want to hit those moments because you get people to sit up and go, I know what that is. That's what they're banking entirely on people knowing what something is.
Yeah,
So they can drum up the hype. So they drum up the pre-orders, drum up the sales. Like
you're not wrong.
they don't want to experiment, Andrew. They don't want to like, oh, we created this whole universe. Don't care. Master Chief, military dude in power armor, has a gun. He points it at the screen and shoots aliens. That's what we want.
But
I
there can be other dudes in other power armor killing other
care
aliens.
how I don't care how or why your justification for it is. Master Chief, green armor, iconic visor, iconic gun, pulse rifle, or whatever, shooting aliens.
You are not
That's
wrong.
what we need. Like it's what we got to sell. We are selling that weird, and then of course there should always be a ring. Game's called Halo. You can't get away from that. But there should always be a ring somewhere on the box, somewhere in the game, somewhere in the trailer. You
It
gotta
has
have
to
that.
be. Yeah.
That is the ultimate suffering from success. That Halo kind of has to basically the curse of it is that it has to always have that. And to be fair, I'm wearing a shirt for a game called Near Automata. And that game will always suffer now going forward because if it doesn't have some weird Marilyn Monroe in a maid outfit with a huge fucking ass, people are going to go, well, where's the big ass? Where's the big ass blindfolded, robot bitch? Where is it? And it's like, okay, well, she's not the main character in Automata. She's not been in any other game. They do not want to do a game with the same characters in the next game. It's cursed. It's fucking it's cursed. And I know it's cursed. And this is probably why Square hasn't pushed forward because of anything Square probably wanted to do was say, like, hey, let's follow up Near. It's a linear story, right? It's not Final Fantasy. All the games are connected. All right, so where's 2B going to be in the next game? It's like, I don't want to do 2B in the next game. Well, why not? That's not where I want to, because that story's done. But
gotta have it.
You gotta have it. We gotta have the ass. We gotta have the sex appeal. We gotta have this thing on the box. This has to be. So
They should have given Nines the ass. Really just confuse some gamers out there, huh?
Or give him a big dick.
You know he had it. You know he had it.
His big pack. Just this big bulging pack is David Bowie, his ass. But it's like that's the curse of them ever doing a new game. Is that like, well, if there's not some weird robot butt, prominently displayed somewhere, people wonder, well, where's this? Because that's all people know. Frankly, I see it with Kenny and Steve all the time. Like at the state of play, they announce, oh, there's going to be a 2B collab in Stellar Blade. It's like, oh, are you going to go? He was like, you're going to play it now, right? And I'm like, no. And he was like, he couldn't believe I wasn't going to play Stellar Blade. I'm like, 2B's not my favorite character. 2B's not even the main character. 2B dies halfway through her own game. Like 9S is the main character, and she's literally just like an extermination bot meant to kill 9S every time he gets too close to the truth. Like, I am not obsessed with this character.
Yeah, I know you're right, but it is.
But that's the thing is like that's what people know. That is the people don't know anything else. Weird Moon Man face, and robot butts, and that is basically that is now the public consciousness's entire ideal imagery is just hyper focused now around that. And Halo's, and again, going back to Halo, that's what Halo suffers from. What do people know Halo for? And I'm like, Master Chief guy in super cool MTX, futuristic a dirt bike riding armor, shoots aliens with guns on a crazy ring planet.
And I'm in every time. You got me. Okay.
So
that's all I want.
You wanted to be creative and different and explore the larger universe at hand, but I just can't see Microsoft greenlighting that.
I hate to frame Bungie as the good guys here, but Bungie would have done it.
Well, Bungie, it's hard to say because Bungie wanted just to get away from it, which I could understand. I could understand Bungie being like, look, we've done 3 Halo games, 3.5. Can we go do something else? And Microsoft being like, no. Oh, well, okay, bye. So I understand why they went down the path they went down. But yeah, I don't even know. Does Bungie still use a
proprietary?
Yeah, I can't remember if Bungie uses proprietary now or not actually. Hold on.
Well, all they make is Destiny.
Sorry, Tiger Engine. That's the engine they use for Destiny 2. So
Tiger Engine. What does Tiger Engine get used?
Modified Blam engine called the Tiger Engine. Tiger Engine is a modified Blam engine
from 1998. What? That's the Blam engine is from 1998. That's wild.
That sounds like Bungie.
Well, isn't that something about the Halo engine that they were jumping from was because like some parts of it were 27 years old? So Bungie is just that asshole. He uses
Look,
old
Helldivers 2 used an engine that was discontinued years ago, and they just kept tinkering with
That's true.
themselves.
Unreal 3 existed only on their hard drives.
So this actually, and for me, okay, so I had a whole thing last night about this, and other people caught on today. I saw videos going up for it, but you probably heard it here from me, or maybe like one other person on Twitter first. Monolith Soft had a whole thing. They actually they are sticking with their own engine going into next gen. So they had an announcement that they are creating an R&D branch in their company, and they actually have been doing it for a year, and they're on a hiring spree for an R&D branch. And they're like, this is unusual for a developer because usually we just develop games. We're making a part of the company that does nothing but curate our engine. And the reason they said they want to do this is like when we're making a game and we have some effect or something we want to do in the engine, and whatever part of the team isn't responsible for that, they'll come up with a plugin or they'll make something, some tool, some custom tool to do it, and then it's gone. They're the only people who, like, the three or whatever people who designed it for that one specific game. That's the only time they've ever used it. And then unless it's been like meticulously documented, the knowledge is gone. So they're like, we basically want everyone to be, hey, you come up with something cool, like share it with the whole team. And we're just going to have a team just making the engine itself, not related to any specific game.
Huh.
We're just, and they're like, we want this engine to be used on every game. They basically also very, very, very obviously insinuated we want it to be used in the rest of Nintendo, and we want it to be used possibly anywhere else. Nintendo will never allow it to go outside their office, their company, but they're basically. I think what happened was is Nintendo probably realized that look, we're there. We held back from making modern hardware, modern software, as long as we humanly could.
Yeah.
Okay, the Switch is a glorified PS3 Pro. It's what a Switch is. And Nintendo, for their, for better or worse, for the most part, can and did get away without really pushing. We don't really need to make anything like, extraneous. They have their bezel engine, which did like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake, and I think Endless Ocean 3 or whatever, right? They had their own engine, but Zelda needed Monolith Soft's engine. And I think they basically realized, oh crap, we're going into PS4 and beyond now. We can't do this. Our engine doesn't have like DLSSR or DLSR or whatever, it doesn't have like upscaling tech. It doesn't have any of this stuff. Like we need a good engine. Wait, you made a really good engine that did stuff that our system should not have been able to do. So there was this big announcement and an interview with the founder and the guy who was one of their main programmers for the Xenoblade trilogy. They just basically said, you're in charge of the R&D now.
They really are one of the most interesting companies just operating today, or development studios, I guess. Like Monolith
Yeah.
Soft is like every time they always seem to be ahead of the curve in some way.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's just because they don't lay people off all the time, so they have that long tail.
And this was something that was brought up in the interview where he says, like, we don't want to just throw a human wave at a problem during a single game's development. He's like, I want to avoid that. That's what Takahashi, the chief creative officer, was like. I don't want to just do human wave tactics, just throw bodies at a project. And he didn't say specific. He didn't elaborate on that, but he's basically what he's saying is, I don't want to hire a bunch of people, throw them at a project, and then lay them all off once the project's over.
Right.
And then there was another point where he says, I want to specifically avoid exploiting people for their motivation. which is why he's like, this is why I want the R&D department to be part of people's daily work hours. I don't want to, because they're talking about, we don't want people to have to come up with solutions in their off hours to get their on hours work done. So he's like, your on the clock hours should be figuring out these problems. So
It's just like it's so novel. like, like, dude sounds like Jesus. he's, he's just saying like basic human decency things, and yet compared to other corporate overlords, he sounds like the second coming. Yeah, you shouldn't work when you're not at work. I will follow this man.
well, just like the line he says, like, I don't want to exploit people for their motivation to make our games.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I'm like, oh wow, like that's should be standard, but yeah, because that's the thing that like a lot of big corpos do, probably more than anything, is just exploit people for their motivation. Oh, you love Disney? You'll love working at Disney. Am I going to pay you? Well, hell no.
There's this CEO, I think his name's like Dan Price or something like that, and I don't even know what his company does, but he got famous because one of his employees or something talked to him one time about like their wages, and so he decided to look into it, and he realized he was getting as CEO $1.1 million, and he did this like thing to find out what the living wage was for the area, and it was 70 grand. So he gave himself a pay cut to 70 grand so that he could pay everyone in his company 70 grand entry level. And it hurt at first, but then like the company did way better. And as the company kept doing better, he kept increasing people's pay and like benefits, and like he did like mortgage assistance. And what happened is like people started staying with him, and institutional knowledge started growing. And like
Yeah.
he gained this reputation in Silicon Valley for being like uh this like philanthropist, even though all he's doing is just like paying people a living wage. And then when COVID hit, their company like had real hard times. So everyone took a 60% pay cut for the period of the shutdown, including him, so that they could keep the company afloat. They did. And then when things came back, he paid everyone back wages on top
Mhm.
of their normal wages. So they all got paid back the 60% or whatever. And they used that money to buy him a Tesla. But like there was this talk that he was on. The reason I bring this up is there was like some talk where they were all like, how do you inspire such loyalty? And he said, well, it's a novel idea. I treat them like human beings, and I pay them like they have to live where they work. And like the guy was all like, wow, will other companies do this? He was like, no, other companies are publicly traded and can't do that.
Oh, did he say that?
And you're just like, damn. Apparently Dan Price is the second coming for being a totally normal and average man. And it's just that's what this guy sounds like. Takahashi, you said his name was?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Tetsuya Takahashi.
Tetsuya Takahashi is like is just like, don't answer emails after hours, and you're like, what? This crazy guy, this revolutionary. I like it. The thing is like I'm trying to think of a Monolith Soft game that I love, and there's no game in particular that I like. Like none of them are bad that I've played, but like none of them that like I love.
You would have actually liked Disaster if it came out here.
Oh yeah,
Just a complete cheeseball game that's basically Time Crisis.
hell yeah. Then yes, I would
It's
have liked
it's
that.
it's just Metal Gear and Time Crisis had a weird baby, and
And we love weird babies.
in the middle of a Roland Emmerich film or something.
Hell yeah. Okay. Yeah, but my point is like I just want them to succeed,
Yeah.
especially if they continue to
Well, it's
operate
like,
in
okay,
this
so
manner.
why is he so benevolent? And I'm like, here's the reason why: because he was in the trenches. Because like that's why I always bring him like, why do you think Takahashi is this way? Because he worked as a grunt for Falcom in the 80s, and then he worked for Squaresoft in the 90s. And then he branched off and started his own company in the early 2000s, well 99, early 2000s, and then he his company got bought, and then he literally watched his company go through the ringer, when its early projects didn't, meet sales expectations, and then Namco merged into Bandai Namco, and he very openly said the management at Bandai Namco he did not agree with them, did not agree with how they ran the company, what they wanted things to do. And then he got convinced to sell Namco got convinced to sell the company to Nintendo. And then at Nintendo, he met Iwata, and Iwata blew his mind when from that story of Xenoblade 1, where he's like, "Hey, we're not meeting my deadline. I'll go and I'll have this meeting with the Nintendo liaison, and I'll tell him, like, we're not going to meet it, so I'm going to cut some stuff out. I'm going to cut these things out of the game. We'll make it work. I know, I don't want to look bad on my new-ish employer." And Nintendo was just like, "What? No, just delay it." And then he was like, "I had never heard of such a thing." He was just like, "No, this is the game. Like, just make the game you want to make. Just delay it till it's done." And that was like Nintendo and Iwata's like basically response was like, "I don't know, just delay it. We're making money hand over fist with Wii Sports. We don't care." Like,
It's just like it's sort of sad that that's so refreshing. Like that should be normal, but it's not. I don't know. Final thoughts on engines and
yeah,
or Nintendo.
I think really, I think the what started about 5 years ago, where I felt like everyone should move to Unreal 5. I don't know if that's the case anymore. And just kind of like seeing how you have something like Ghost of Yotei, seeing just going back and just playing Horizon 2, just running around for a little bit, in that game, like you said, Last of Us 2 on a very technical engine level, seeing that game, and then just reading this long interview with Monolith Soft out on Sunday/Monday, about why they've decided to stick with their own engine and why they decided to create an R&D division within the company. And they basically said they said the reason, and they said it very slyly too, where they're like, because we made games that tens of millions of people could enjoy. I'm like, oh, he's talking about Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
He basically said, because Breath of the Wild sold 30 million and we made that engine, we basically told Nintendo, you need to give us an R&D division. And it doesn't sound like it was a threat. It just sounded like Nintendo was like, yeah, you guys do our shit. So,
I mean, talk about a company that's like proven themselves over and over again, though.
yeah, it's unfortunate, like, their own franchise never really hit any sort of mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
It's got good word. It's got good word of mouth. And the thing is this is where it's actually the nice thing about, say, I was thinking about it when we were talking about it with Halo, is like Halo suffers from success. Xenoblade hasn't had huge success, so it can still kind of do what it wants. Like, we
Yeah.
make, we prop up Zelda, we prop up Animal Crossing, we keep their biggest freaking games running, which lets us make our own little games. And sadly, they don't find a huge audience, but we also have nobody sitting there telling us like, I think you should do this for more mass market appeal. And we're just like, nah.
No, fuck that. Yeah,
we gave you your mass market. You let me do what I want.
as a final thought, I think I'm still on board with everyone consolidating onto at least fewer engines, mostly because I think it will make devs' lives easier / getting into gaming easier. And I'm
It also sounds like, in a way, like Unreal 5 isn't quite the savior engine we thought it would be.
no, right. There's a bunch of stuff about it that's sort of jank, right?
Yeah, and it's like coming out more and more that, like, yeah, no, Unreal 5 doesn't do everything great.
Well, its tech demo obviously was probably exaggerated, but like there's the Halo Studio or whatever is amped because of the textures and the way materials react to lighting, and that's all the same stuff that they said 5 years ago about Unreal 5.
Yeah.
So there it's hard to know if that's just like they handed them a card and like, say this. You're like, okay, this is what I'm excited about. But I don't know if I thought knowing a studio's particular engine gave you some protection from layoff or some institutional talent protection, I would be like, oh, absolutely. I hope every studio has their own engine or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
But it just doesn't. You're right. It kind
And
of
so
like
it would be easier for you when you get laid off if the next studio you go to is like, yes, of course I know Unreal 5 because it's the industry standard. You
Hmm.
know, it sort of reminds me of post production, where it's like these days, post production really, it's like if you are in commercials, you're working on Adobe Premiere. Commercials and corporate video will do Adobe Premiere. If you're in reality TV or narrative TV, you're going to be on Avid. And if you're, prosumer at home, you're going to be doing DaVinci Resolve or Smoke if you're a really obscure dude. You know, I but there was a period in time where everyone was on Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, there
And so
was.
you could walk into any post production and be like, I can cut on Final Cut Pro, and you could get like an AE job or something entry level, but like as long as you knew Final Cut Pro. Now it's like, yeah, you can do that still if you know Avid. And knowing Avid is sort of the mark of a true editor.
Mm,
Um, because Avid is like it is built for production teams. It's not built for, the prosumer market, or I guess it's just uh, there's not a lot of ways to explain it without going into a whole bunch of jargon that I'm only half knowledgeable about myself. But the point is like Avid is still sort of the gold standard, but more and more people use Premiere, people use like Resolve.
mm.
Um, you know, really, honestly, the only one nobody uses is fucking Vegas. It's just you and Max.
It's just me and Max. It's not really. It's not necessarily a great engine. It's just the engine we had.
It's not good. It's not good at all.
There was a
It-
time where a lot of people. I remember it went on sale for like $20, and a bunch of people like bought it. And I'm like, honestly,
yeah,
you should have just done this from the start.
I bought it for $20 and I used it for 6 months, and then I switched back to Premiere, and Premiere's garbage. I really don't like Premiere. And then I was using Avid for a long time, and then I love Resolve.
I mean,
Resolve is my new
frankly, look.
favorite.
I mean, if you're just a content creator and on YouTube or whatever, and you just like, hey, $20, you get a full ass editing software.
Resolve is free. The
It,
full thing is free for
oh
Resolve.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't need to, but it's like I don't know what the outside world looks like for other things. So I mean, honestly, just get something that works and you can learn it and go with it.
Yeah, if you're a content creator, does it just use the one that you like using? But um, my point about the engine thing is like standardization does have some benefits,
Hmm.
but
It
it is
should more like standardization should have
should
benefits.
have benefits, but there's no guarantee that it does. On that note, though, I guess not maybe a little bit of a downer, but on that note, we've got producers to thank. Again, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week was Marcus E. Thank you, Marcus. And our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Zybernite, Tsunami, Koroi35, Hyper Viper 89, Hockey Kong 64, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. We'll catch you next time.
Later, dudes.